And I'm going to make Chris the host, and then he can begin his presentation. And hi. Oh, someone else is joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Adam, and thanks for the folks that are joining. We've done this in the past live, and unfortunately, we thought virtually might get us some more feedback, but really thankful for the folks who have chosen to take time out of their busy evenings and join us. But this is an awfully small group. It looks like we have three BEDers and three customers on the call, so we can keep this informal. I do have a slide deck. Happy to start moving through it. But with such a small group, what we really want is feedback. We work for you. We're a not-for-profit municipal utility that luckily is also an energy efficiency utility like Efficiency Vermont and Vermont Gas, VGS. So I'll just open it up if anybody has some thoughts. And Tree, it looks like you said you may need to leave early, so I'm open to doing this any way that you folks feel most useful. It can be a conversation, or I can start going through the slide deck and maybe some things will come up. So anyone has any comments before we kick off, love to hear them. All right, seeing none, we are going to go into, we hope, the slide deck. And is everybody seen?
Looks good.
My screen.
Hit the slideshow button.
All right, I'm going to hit the slideshow button. Come on. So why? It's spinning on my computer, so it should come up in a second. Adam, we seeing one screen?
We're seeing multiple screens.
All right, so we're going to do that
display settings thing.
And I'm sorry, I've lost display settings thing.
It's at the top left. It might be hidden under one of the Zoom things.
Sorry, folks, we'll get this in a second. Oh, there we go. I'm sorry. Display settings. Swap presenter view. How's that looking?
That's it.
All right.
Looks good.
Okay, folks. I'll go through this rather quickly, and please interrupt me at any time. Unfortunately, we learned that our membership to Zoom is only on the 40-minute clock. But please drop a message or efficiency@burlingtonelectric.com. You will always find us. So if you have to hop off and we don't cover what you want, happy to do one-on-ones. This is, again, such a small group. So that invitation is out there. So from a regulatory perspective, the energy efficiency utility is kind of run just like the power resources of a utility, where there's a planning horizon that happens about every 3 years. And it's a time to take a breath and assess what you've been doing and really try to talk to folks and say, all right, are we on the right path? So since the spring, we've done about 10 community events. And at those events where we have our information booth up, always probing customers about, hey, thank you for participating, or why didn't you participate? What's going on? What can we do? We did a customer satisfaction survey that was really enlightening. It turns out that we're not being as impactful with renters as we could be. Some folks just say, hey, I can't participate because I don't own the building. That sometimes applies to some of our commercial customers as well, because a lot of our commercial customers lease. So, but with that said, couple quick things we're going to go through. I just want to give you some context that really helps to form why Burlington does what it does. Our markets and our things are a little different in Burlington than they are in the rest of the state. You know, we look more like South Burlington and Winooski. We'll go in a little bit of that, and then we'll talk about the programs focused on electrical savings. We also have a small budget focused on fossil fuel, things that are not served by Vermont Gas, which is not very much in Burlington. And then some other budgets, if we have time, that talk about, you know, our main focus is to go get savings, electrical savings, and do it at less cost than our power planners go out and buy the replacement power. And so, you know, that's our number one thing. We want to be impactful in homes and businesses and try to get really cost-effective long-term savings. We're building a power plant. You know, we're trying to replace contracts that are going offline, and we'll get a little bit more into that. So, just some context for Burlington. Second, you know, we're the biggest city in Vermont, but that's not very big when you look at other cities. But just to show you the customer count between residential and commercial, it is heavily weighted towards residential, but you'll see that the actual usage is heavily weighted towards commercial. And about 75% of our load goes towards the commercial class and street lighting. Oh, sorry. Got to get back here for 1 second. Apologies. Do it the old-fashioned way. So when you look at our top 20 customers, they're using about 50% of all the electricity in the city, both residential and commercial. And in terms of our history, we've been doing this since 1990. And, you know, we think we're a player in the results of this graph and why we're using less electricity than we did in 1989. That's always been kind of our benchmark. But I think the Vermont ethic, the Burlington ethic in particular, energy codes and standards, you know, a refrigerator that you buy today is 80% or 75% less energy than it was back then. So all of these forces are coming together to tell this story of Burlington. We're very proud of it because it has saved a lot of money. And again, the whole point here is, can you do this cheaper than buying the power? And oh, by the way, if you do it well and you get, you know, enough customers to participate over time, those dollars are staying locally. You know, you're not paying as much on your energy bills. That gives you dollars to do other things. Our rates aren't as high, and all of the stuff that we're doing in buildings is done by local trades, and they're buying the supplies locally. And the multiplier effect of the money, we think, is very powerful. So we think it's, you know, a good story for Burlington. Just a little bit about our usage. You know, we have among the lowest residential usage, I believe, I know in New England, and I believe across the nation. A lot of that has to do, frankly, you know, not taking all the credit there. A lot of it has to do with high saturations of natural gas, a whole lot of apartments that are not as fully equipped as a typical home. Most apartments don't have laundry, for example. But, you know, when you have 60% of your residential customers living in apartments, that's a little different than, you know, a bunch of larger single family homes. But we're still pretty happy because we have seen the loads drop. And we know we're playing some role in that. What else do we need to know? We've got you know, again, there's the natural gas figures, 95%, and 98% for commercial. The other big thing for us, and that is just keeping people's focus on whether or not they want to participate. You know, we churn the residential accounts, about 35% of those accounts churn every year because, you know, we just got a big student population. So we we try to stay very focused on having something for everybody, back to the renter, back to the homeowner, back to the small business owner who doesn't own their building, to the largest customers that you can imagine who they are in Burlington. We also, invest heavily in the municipal customers and the schools. They've been great partners, but that also, reducing the loads in these buildings, we think is good public policy. So historically, we have been offering main programs in the residential sector and the commercial sector, and retail efficient products, residential new construction, residential existing buildings. We also have a growing focus on our income eligible homeowners and renters. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then the two biggest programs are the business new construction and business existing facilities. And then that other odd one, thermal energy and processed fuels, you can think of that as weatherizing mostly homes that are not served by Vermont Gas. So we have small pockets of LP gas, propane, we have oil, we have some wood folks, and we have some hybrid folks, meaning they're heating with a few different sources. And if they happen to heat with, let's say an electric heat pump and natural gas, well, BED and Vermont Gas, the two energy services teams, have come up with a way to just share that customer. So we share who does the energy audit, who works with the contractor, and who helps pay to weatherize that building. And in many cases, the customer just gets a portion of the cost from us and a portion from VGS. So we've been working hard with our VGS colleagues to deal with hybrid buildings. And I'm not going to hit you with a lot of numbers, but I just want you to know the order of magnitude. When you look at your electric bill and you see that energy efficiency charge that we all pay, and this hits everyone in the state of Vermont. This is how the energy efficiency programs are invested. It's a volumetric charge on every kilowatt hour. And every 3 years, we build up budgets and we do studies and we say, here's what we think is the cost-effective energy efficiency to go get, and here's what we think is going to cost us to go get it. So I know that's a lot of numbers, but I feel obliged to just let you know the scale. And that this one is just, you'll see commercial, residential, income eligible. That's what we call the sector split. And here's how it breaks down by program. And you'll sit there and you can see the 75% of electricity used by the largest commercial customers, they pay into the EEC based on their usage. And in terms of the benefit to all of us, in terms of reducing the load and the costs, we focus on them, but you'll also notice we have something for everybody. That the efficient products program, for example, when buying LED light bulbs or appliances, that has been a really popular program. We spend a lot of time in existing homes. COVID was particularly interesting for us. We saw the residential class go up because we were all spending more time at home, and we were driving our homes harder. And so we were getting high bill complaints, but we couldn't go out. Pre-COVID, we would send an auditor out. We were learning how to do virtual audits, and really some really interesting outcomes from that, because it got the customer involved more, and some really good stuff with smartphones. In terms of savings, the breakdown, roughly when you look at that 14,556, that translates in between 1% to 2% of BED's annual growth. And why we showed you that chart to say we've flattened the growth with the help of efficiency is that's what we're trying to go after. We're trying to go after that 1% to 2%. And so this just puts it in numbers by program, because it's a way we can track how well we're doing. We really want to hit the goal, and we want to hit it with as less within the budget and hopefully under the budget. We also don't mind going over the savings. We work very hard to stay within budget, but if we can find some winners and go over, we're very happy to do it because it's a lumpy business. Sometimes there's a lot of activity and you can pounce and customers are ready. Some years, the COVID years in particular, not so much so. If there's a recession, we can see the economic impact of program participation. I'm not going to, please raise your hand or stop me. I'm not going to read all of this, but I just wanted to give you the sense of the programs. This is the one I mentioned. This is the one that we share with our partners at Efficiency Vermont. We offer it to everyone in the state, and this is trying to influence what's stocked in Vermont stores. And in some cases, we're buying down the price when you go to buy it at the cash register. In some cases, it's a mail-in rebate. We want to make sure Vermonters have access to more efficient stuff and can figure out, is it worth it or not? We've thrown a couple twists, and we hope to keep doing this because we find that they're popular. Appliance recycling, refrigerators, dryers, washing machines. We have a deal where you just sign up online, and if you want to get rid of that second fridge or freezer, you get it ready to go, and we come and pick it up for you, and we recycle it properly. So we're pretty pleased with how folks have reacted to this program. Right now, we're proposing, to just keep tweaking, refining, and making it as accessible as it possibly can going into this planning period. Residential new.
If I could just jump in for a second, we're at 20 minutes after 6, and we're wondering if anybody has any questions.
Oh,
Here's a question from Tree.
great.
Do you want to address that, Chris? The question is, she was wondering why rates keep going up if we're saving money.
It's a good question, Tree. And, this is a small part of what BED does and why rates are going up. We're attached to the ISO New England grid, and we pay them to be part of the larger grid. So all the power plants in New England feed into the grid. We're a member. Our McNeil plant is part of the ISO New England. And when you have things like, the world economy having its trouble, and you're having natural gas prices go up the way they have, most of New England's power grid is fed by natural gas. So eventually, it's going to catch up with everybody. But one of the biggest drivers of our recent rates, and I'm not a rate guy, so I don't want to come off as some expert, has just been our cost to ISO to be part of the system, which is important because we all support each other. If a power plant goes down, we make sure that there's enough power on the grid so that everyone in the New England region and even beyond, has reliable power. So it's not like something you don't want to be part of, but there are costs associated with it. And it's really a question of, if we didn't do some of the work we're doing and have a, renewably sourced portfolio, things could be a lot worse for Burlington. And unfortunately, some of the rate increases we're seeing in our neighboring states are 2 to 3 times larger what we've been experiencing. So we're hoping to keep it as low as we can, but some of these things we don't control. I hope that answered it. So residential new construction, I won't read it just because of our time, but we just want to make you aware that we don't do a lot of single family, but if we do, we're ready to go. It's a partnership with Efficiency Vermont and Vermont Gas, where because these builders are building everywhere, we want to give them one set of rules. It's been interesting to see that for a lot of new buildings, especially multifamily, they're moving away from gas heat because heat pumps are becoming such a popular first choice, especially if somebody wants to air condition. It's the lowest capital cost. So our job is to make that building itself, the shell, as efficient as we possibly can, and make sure really efficient heat pumps are going in the building. Residential existing buildings, again, we spend a great deal of time on what we call the customer side of the meter, meaning, you know, you invite us into your home, whether virtually or live, and we're going to do everything we can to help you think through what your best steps are going to be. And, you know, for some folks, it starts with a high bill complaint. They're really upset, and they want to know if we're doing something wrong or if it's something in the house. We try to sort that through and then start figuring out what opportunities are there and how we can help them. Sometimes it goes back to that partnership with Vermont Gas. The issue really is a gas issue, but we work so closely with those guys that there's emails flying back all the time between the two teams on behalf of our mutual customers. Again, you know, an increasing focus on our income qualified folks. We have a great partnership with the Weatherization Assistance Program that is a full grant that takes care of weatherization, health and safety. We take care of any electric efficiency stuff. We think it's a really valuable program that we plan to continue. And we also have, you know, a number of the listed affordable housing folks. That's also a great relationship that we plan to continue. Business new construction. So Burlington has grown, as many of you know. For those of you who have been here a long time, you know, we probably go up on average, you know, a 15-year average, we probably add 2% a year in square footage. So, you know, you look at some of the Cambrian Rise properties, for example, some of the new dorms up at UVM, you know, those are examples of big projects. We're very involved in the new high school. We're very involved in the announcement of City Place. And, you know, our job, if we do it right, is to convince the developers to go way, way beyond the required energy code. Vermont has energy codes that, you know, people could argue they could be stronger, but our job is to make sure that that's the baseline, and any incentives you get from us is predicated on going substantially beyond the required code. And we do that through a building energy model approach, and we do that by paying the developer an agreed upon incentive upon occupancy, and that's 50% of the incentive. And then we wait about 12 months looking at the actual usage of the bill as it compares to the building energy model, and making sure that that building is tuned up and ready to go. Typically in larger buildings, when things go bad, they go bad in the first year. So we hold off that second incentive because we want everyone to stay focused, that everything is optimized and the building is working as designed. So that's a program we continue to plan to offer. It's a little bit more complicated than a checklist program where you just hit the checklist and get your money. But we have had phenomenal results from this energy modeling approach. So we hope to continue, and we've seen some really interesting, some very interesting high performance buildings come out of it.
Chris, we have a question from Susan. She's
Yes.
wondering, how are the incentives funded?
So back to that whole EEC, the energy efficiency charge money, our line item that's on all our electric bills and all electric bills in Vermont. It's through a process like this. We're building up a budget. We're building up targets. We have to get it approved by the Public Utilities Commission, and that sets the rate, that energy efficiency charge rate you see on your electric bill or your Vermont gas bill. For the other weatherization program that I mentioned, that TEPF, that is for folks that don't heat with Vermont gas, there's another source of funds that were granted to the energy efficiency utilities that we can use to try to help folks weatherize their non-VGS heated homes.
Chris, we have 10 minutes left.
Okay.
We got two more questions just came in.
Sure.
Do you think at some point everyone who is on gas or oil will be required to go all electric? For example, we'll have to get an electric stove to replace our gas one. Wondering specifically about existing.
Right now, there's a lot of talk at the city council, and BED and the Department of Public Works have been tasked with looking at climate change issues and carbon reduction, but we are not recommending anything in existing buildings. We're doing it all through voluntary and incentives. So right now, there's no plans to go into an existing home and tell you what you need to do with your appliances or your heating.
Right. And then the next question from Dennis is, do you have plans to expand into solar, and how will we benefit from the clean heat standard? Two-part question. Do we plan to expand into solar, and how will we benefit from the clean heat standard?
So first question first, Vermont right now is all utilities are under the net metering law. And it's gone surprisingly well in Burlington, considered how treed we are and how urban we are. We have about 8 megawatts in the city. You can't see most of it. And just relative to that, McNeil is 50 megawatts. And so that's about 350 installs throughout the city that have gone through the net metering program, where BED helps with the interconnection in terms of how you do the metering and the billing. And then BED pays for any of those credits. So we're thinking it's going pretty well, through that state process. Community solar is something that folks have asked us to look at, and we're going to look at for, let's say you're in a building where you can't get solar on your roof. And in terms of the clean heat standard, we know that that's getting teed up in the legislature for next month. How that is going to affect us, not sure, but I think between that and the Inflation Reduction Act, which has a number of efficiency and electrification incentives and tax credits in it, the combination could be pretty powerful. But as soon as we get more information on how IRA works, we'll start putting that on our website, because there's some good stuff coming. Especially in the weatherization field, but also with EVs and heat pumps and other things. It's even including panel upgrades, home panel upgrades for folks who need to up their service if they want to put in an EV charger, for example.
All right, we have about 5 minutes left.
Okay. And this is exactly what I was talking about with the TEPF weatherization service, that other bucket of money. Essentially, this is weatherization. We work in partnership with Home Performance with Energy Star, which is offered around the state. We also keep a small bucket for our friends up at the North Avenue Co-op, our only mobile home park, where high efficiency manufactured housing can be a really nice solution if someone's looking for a new mobile home, or is weighing, should I get a new one? Should I get a used one? What would a zero energy modular home look like through our partnership with Champlain Housing Trust Home Ownership Program? And I think I'm going to stop it there, and I'll stop it there in 1 second. This is some of the other stuff that small bucket of money comes through the same EEC that we use, to do things like go into the schools, to do the Vermont Energy education program, to do some research and development. And I'll stop there because I would love to hear more from you guys.
We'll give folks another minute or so, but I don't see any new questions coming in.
Adam, are we allowed to let folks speak if they if they want to.
I believe so. I believe they can unmute their microphones. Oh, here comes somebody. Yeah, Susan, go right ahead.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Chris. I was wondering with the incentives and rebates for the residential customers, is it a one-time deal or do they renew annually, or can you get them more than once?
Oh yeah. Just not for the same thing.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, if you're chipping away at making your place more energy efficient, and it's a big project. So maybe you're insulating your ceiling, maybe you're doing the walls next. So that would be different. It would be the same overall goal, but a different kind of project each time.
Yeah, you're hitting on a really good point that we've been trying to unpack and do better, and that is road mapping for folks, right? Nobody really can do everything at once, especially if you have a lot to do. And so how can we, say, okay, here's your first step, here's what we think the savings are going to be, here's the incentive. Second step, same thing. And meet you on your journey and not say you got to bite it all off at once.
Okay.
Thanks for the question.
I'll also say that heat pumps, I think mini split heat pumps, we've just upped the number from 1 to 2 this coming year that homes will be allowed to get. And we're always trying, and I know last year, a year before, we were able to expand the EV rebate per home from 1 to 2. So we're always trying to push the, the normalization of this electrification. So not just getting one EV and one rebate, but you should be able to get 2 now. And obviously, if you work for a business and you want to negotiate more, we can usually help. Dennis is asking, can you explain the heat pump concept in in 2 minutes?
So think about a refrigerator. I don't know if you're asking technically, but they've been around forever. They just haven't done particularly well in cold climate like ours. But heat pumps can do air conditioning and heating. And what we're seeing up in cold climate like ours is just a better machine. The refrigerant can do much better at lower temperatures and throw heat out, depending on the machine you buy, to 5, 10, 15 degrees Fahrenheit. The problem is that they're probably not a whole home solution for most of us. And you'd need to do one of two things, or maybe both. You need some pretty big heat pumps to completely displace all your fossil fuel, or you would need to really drop the load of the building by making it incredibly well weatherized. But we are trying to align our programs to be able to help folks roadmap that, because we know some folks, that's what they really want. And that's what we want through our net zero energy city. How you get there with such old housing stock, that's what we're challenged with right now.
We have 90 seconds left. As you can see on the screen, if you ever have any questions, you can write to one of the addresses on the screen or use our contact form on our website at burlingtonelectric.com. Anything else you want to close with, Chris?
No, thank you. Thanks for the discussion. And as Adam said, don't be shy. We'd love to hear from you. Either one of those emails works. But if you wake up with some thought tomorrow morning about how we can do more, how we can do better or tweak, this isn't a one and done. We've been doing this for a long time, and we hope to continue to do it for a long time. So these conversations are just always valuable.
Great. I think we're going to get booted off the system in about 10 seconds. So I'll reiterate, thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.